Well, hello, and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program. This is episode 25 of the career we've been sharing on Facebook, and I hope you've been enjoying. There's a playlist if you've missed them, so be sure to check it out. Um, Last time we just came back from the moon, and we brought back science, and we got enough to start a mining mission for Minmus. So I went ahead and I built the ship and set it up with the crew so we could launch this. Now this is a monstrosity. This this whole thing is just crazy. I'm just going to admit to it now. I didn't really have the launch vehicles yet to get this sensibly into orbit, so we just Kerbalized the living heck out of it, and yeah, we're going to do it that way. So we're going to pretty much go straight up for the entirety of the time that these solid rocket boosters are going. You notice I have a bunch of nuclear power on this. I have no solar. I want this to be kind of like a universal build for this type of station, for these orbital refineries. When we have better rockets, these will be much easier to put into orbit. But while we don't, we are going to go full Kerbal and do what we can do with the technology that we have. And it takes a little bit sometimes to get to the launch pad, so we'll just sit here and wait. There we go. All right, I'm going to give it some gas. I only have one liquid fuel engine burning in this whole monstrosity, but that's just nuts. So as this goes up, we should get through the thickest part of the atmosphere. And when we get that far, most of the stuff on the outside will be gone, and we'll be able to use the liquid fueled engines to get us into orbit, I hope, all the way, and maybe even change our orbital plane a little bit with that main stage before we have to go to the nuclear engines. But we are getting a decent burn up. I had changed the, this is screwy, I had changed our resolution to 1920 by 1080 thinking that that would help the pixelization, and I believe it has, but apparently it reverted back to the old setting because now everything's in the wrong place again and everything's small. So hopefully this doesn't pixelize too much, or I'll have to redo this mission, which would be a real bummer. We are going pretty decently. Whoa, I don't know why it's swinging back and forth there. Just saw that thing swing far to the left. So that's why I clicked on here to try to get it back to the center. We are almost out of our first set of solid fuel, so we're going to go ahead and drop those engines here. We're going up at a pretty decent clip, so I think we're going to make it into orbit without, or into space rather, without too much problem. Right now, we've got all 5 of those engines going, and what we're going to do is go, yeah, we're easily into space. So even if something stupid happens now, we can just cut the engines and know we'll end up in space. But what I will do is just start everything sideways on this. Every ounce of thrust that we have is going to be pushing this at 90 degrees. There we go. And we just lost those, ran out of gas. And all 3 of these engines are burning off of the gas now on these 2 outer. Before, they were burning off of the other 2. So there were basically 5 engines burning off of 2 tanks of gas. Now there's 3 off of 2 tanks of gas, so this will last a lot longer than those last ones. And of course the center one is a much larger tank anyways, so that's going to last even longer because it's just one of the engines burning off of that when we get to that point. That's a fairly high orbit relative to what I want to be shooting for, so I'm going to kind of burn down a little bit, which is a little... I hate doing that, but I don't see that I have too much of a choice. I don't want this to get too high. I mean, it's okay if it gets a little higher, but... And it's going to, because we're going to kind of keep pushing it farther away from the curvature of the Earth, so as Kerbin, rather. So as the curvature of the planet changes, and this stays the same, it'll actually be higher, if that makes sense. All right, we just lost those engines, or lost that fuel, so we're back to just that center one. Now, we don't have very much thrust to weight in this, 0.76. So that is not great, but it's okay, because we just need to not pass the apoapsis with a whole lot left to burn. We're getting closer and closer to it. Now this time is a bit of a misnomer. It's 1 minute, 6 seconds, 5 seconds, whatever, that we'd hit it if we weren't burning. Now, there's at some point in time a sweet spot in here that we'll hit where the time will stay pretty even. Well, I don't know where that is. That's several hundred meters per second faster than we're going. And then at some point we'll start pushing it away. But right now it's getting closer. And if I push down on here, I'm burning more efficiently, but I am speeding that up. So it's a bit of a playoff. Well, we've got a lot of liquid fuel left in the tank, as you see at the lower left of the screen. And I'm hoping we have enough delta V to push us into a decent orbit. I mean, we're going pretty quickly now, and you notice that T minus 43 seconds hasn't changed, so that's a pretty decent location that we're at. I'm going to go ahead and burn flatter again. I went to 44, and now it's back to 43 because I just moved it a little bit down. All right, so it's actually now moving away from us, so I'm going to stop burning for just a little bit. And I'm going to add a maneuver right at the apoapsis because that's going to be the most efficient place to do it. And we'll go ahead and move that to 127, 132, 133, 131. That's close enough. We're going to go ahead and tell it to go. We have a 33-second burn, so at about 17 seconds we're going to go. That's nice. We're going to have a little bit of fuel left over, I think. Not much, though. But it's still okay. It's fuel we don't have to burn when we change our orbital plane. Fuel we don't have to burn out of the main tank that's going to get us there. We'll just be expending more of the first stage. And there we have it. So we're in a fairly decent orbit. We're going to go ahead and choose Minmus. And we are going to, where are we at? It's the descending node that we're headed toward, so we're going to need to burn up to match that plane. And what I'm doing here is I know, whoops, went past it. What we can see is as I bring that up, as that spins around, that means we're pretty flat. So I usually try to get that close to about halfway, and then I consider that about as flat as we can reasonably get. And we'll just go ahead and spin around. Now we have a pretty long burn here, which is nothing compared to the burn that we're going to have to do in a little bit. I'm worried about fuel, and we have 28 minutes worth of burn. So that should kind of tell you what some of these are going to be like. I'm going to go ahead and fast forward this now. Oops. I'm going to go ahead and fast forward this in non-physics fast forward. It's a lot faster. We need to get to about 1:20. And we're getting pretty quickly. Like to get there a little bit more quick, but I tend to overshoot that when I do it too much. So there we go. Well, that didn't that didn't help with too much after all. I was hoping that would give us a few more meters per second than what it did. All right, I can speed this up 1. I'm afraid to speed it up past that because if I do, this whole ship could shake apart. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to be quiet for the rest of this burn, and we'll let you do it at least quicker speed. All right. That was somewhat painful, I will admit. This next one's going to be like real crazy, and I apologize for that. It's just nuclear engines. They're not very quick devices. They're just very useful devices. All right, we can do better than this. All right, want to do, there we go. That's good enough. I mostly just want to come into close contact with it. I don't know how much fuel I am actually going to have. I should have way more than enough based on this. So we'll probably be fine. I'd like to get this into low Kerbin orbit, low Minmus orbit if we could. So, all right, we'll go ahead and fast forward to this as much as we can. We have a burn time of 10:40, so at 5 minutes and 20 seconds before the burn. Oh, this is going to be awful. We're going to need to start. So I'm going to fast forward to about then. And here we go. All right, once again, I'm just going to be quiet, and I've got this on twice speed here. I'm probably going to accelerate this like 8 times in the video speed. So I'm just going to let this go for a little bit, and I'll see you on the other side. All right, so that was that shows you right there how off we were relative to our original burn, just because we had to burn such a long time. You can see how these cooling things are working. Now, what happens is these things will get as hot as they need to get up to 99% and radiate that heat off. So you'll see them turning bright red. That's kind of by design. They're keeping everything else cool. Now, the ones that extract out actually keep the core of the ship warm. There's other ones you can just put on specific items and it'll keep that item cold, or that one part cold or cool. Now, arguably that ultimately affects the core, but this does directly, and so all the heat from the engines are going into these things right now. And you can see it's slowly, the power is going down that's being used. And it can more than handle the power because we have all these nuclear powered things here pretty much handle everything, including the science. I don't know if you saw me in the middle of it. I started grabbing some science, and then I came out and started generating it. They haven't generated very much yet. They also don't have very much science to work with. I'm going to go ahead actually and run that again and put everything in that it'll let me, because we're in higher orbit now. We can probably do that with crew reports. I don't know if that'll work or not. Crew report. Nope, can't put that in. That's not worth anything. But we have a little more data in here now, and 1/3 of what we could have. We're going to definitely put some more in when we get to Minmus, and it'll fill that out. And so, it's researching. It's, again, background noise. Scientists that would otherwise be at the astronaut complex are now generating science. So that's all there is to that. All right, so we are on our way to Minmus, and let's go ahead and fast forward. Just wanted to make sure we had all of that going before we fast forwarded, so all the time that is happening now will help us out. Now, we're pretty far away from here, so I want to slow down a little bit before we get here as far as the time, because I don't want to go too far into that. 3 hours, 14. I mean, we shouldn't. We have plenty of time, presumably, but just don't want to go so fast that it skips right through this orbit, because I've seen that happen too many times. And that's just disheartening, as you can imagine. All right. We are headed in the right direction. I'm going to go ahead and slow that down. Well, you think I was going to slow it down. There we go. We will get a burn in to make sure we're captured. Oopsie. Not quite that far. A little farther than that, however. Trying to make the periapsis down to 10-ish. That's good enough. We'll go ahead. We certainly have enough burn for that. That's good. We have plenty of fuel. I was worried about that, because, again, the only fuel that I added besides what was already existing in the science lander was in here. I filled this to the brim. So that's half empty. I'm guessing all of these are half empty as well. In an ideal world, we would really just want to make sure all of our fuel is in these, but I'm not too concerned about it right at the moment. All right, well, we have 55 minutes to do a 2-minute and 23-second burn. So I think it's probably pretty safe to go ahead and warp to the next maneuver. And we'll fast forward just a tad bit here, because we need to go at about, I don't know, 111, 112, someplace in that neighborhood, probably 112. The beginning part of the burn is actually less effective than the ending part of the burn, because there's more weight, because there's more fuel. So the end of the burn, your engines are actually producing way more effective, increase in speed than they were at the beginning. So if you're going to try to be precise, err on the side of burning early than burning late when you're dividing it in half. Take that last second. It doesn't matter. So, I mean, but if it were going to matter, that's the way I would do it. Once again, I'm going to go ahead and crank this up to double the speed, and although this one is pretty fast, I'll fast forward this, do this with you. As far as the video is concerned, we'll just go ahead and speed this up as well. Okay, we are in a pretty decent orbit right now with this. I don't know how perfect it is. I don't know if it's exactly right on the equatorial path, but it's not bad. We're going to go ahead and bring this down the rest of the way. We'll eventually get that worked out, but it's hard to balance this. All right, so that's basically about what we want. 40-second burn in 3 days, 5 hours, and 13 minutes. So let's go ahead and warp to the next maneuver. Well, as soon as this thing moves, we'll give it a little bit of a physics, give it double speed there so it moves the way we need it to be and be prepared. It'll be prepared for the next burn. All right, and then we'll warp to next maneuver. And we'll set this back to the maneuver node. We need to burn at 20 seconds, T minus 20 seconds, so we'll get close to that. And go. We're just going to pull this right down, and this will be in a nice orbit. And we'll have plenty of fuel left, which, I mean, plenty being relative, but we'll have some fuel left, which is nice. And this is coming down, coming down. Just a few more seconds left, as you can see down at the by the ball. Burn time is 4, 3, 2, 1, and done. Almost done. All right, so here we are. We have a ship at Minmus. Let's go ahead and do some quick Minmus science and fill this up. So it has a lot more data. We should have probably grabbed it when we were in high Minmus orbit. I didn't even consider that, but too late now. We will go ahead and clean experiments. I believe that costs a little bit of energy, but it doesn't matter because we've got tons of it. You know, it's kind of funny. I meant to pop these off a long time ago for weight. We don't need those. Well, now they're in some random orbit around Minmus, but whatever. So here we are. That's pretty beautiful. We can detach this, land down, grab more science, throw it into here, transmit it, do all sorts of stuff. We have a lot of opportunities. These guys are just going to keep churning away in the background even when we're not near the ship. It's already generated 40 science. We can transmit that now. No available in range. Oh, that's funny. I did not put any... That's something I forgot to do on this one, so we'll have to add a little module with it. This does not have any antenna on it. I messed that up. Oh well, that's okay. The funny thing is, though, is this should. This should be able to extend. Is it just not? It's just not in range of the planet. That's why I can't see it. So if we fast forwarded through here, now it has it. We could. We do need to get antennas on that in future builds, and I do need to build a module for it. That's funny. But this is now in range, so we can go ahead and transmit that science back to Kerbin. As it's doing now. And that's 40 science that we got basically for having scientists on here and burning energy as we came out to orbit here. So that's not a bad deal. And again, they are just going to keep generating that for us. So I'm going to hop back on into the Space Center. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and say that this is probably the end of this video. What I want to do the next time is we're going to go ahead and launch the actual mining ship that'll go to the surface, grab all the ore, and bring it back to the surface. So that's our next mission. I hope you enjoyed this one. This is, like I said, this is a lot easier when you have better ships or better rockets and so forth to get you into orbit. But this did work, surprisingly enough, and we did get some science out of the deal. So, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Please click the like button. Please click the subscribe button. Tell your friends. Get as many people on this channel as you could, please. I'd really appreciate this thing growing a little bit. It'll help me to make more and better videos as I get better feedback and more viewers and so forth. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Have a great day. Be safe.